30 seconds.
All right, I want to say good evening to our audience. This is the new year, February 2023, Houston Media Source, Public Affairs, Public Access, over 30 years of broadcasting here in the city of Houston about the events that go on not only here, but around the country and the world, in fact, because of the impact Houston has on so many people and the lives that we intersect with. And tonight I'm joined by one of the legendary community activists here in the city of Houston, around the country, Minister Charles X. White of Charity Productions. We might have some other guests come on, but we're going to have a very frank conversation that some of you might be able to join in and call. And the idea is that in this new year, we've already begun. We've seen some tremendous impacts. I mean, the recent earthquake in Turkey and Iran has affected over 12,000 at this point. The people who have been impacted by a natural disaster, and people are rushing from around the world to respond to that incident. It's the most horrific case in natural history there. We have also the traumatic ongoing reality of what has happened in the recent weeks with the another murder of police who brutally beat a young African-American man in Memphis, Tennessee. Of course, Minister Charles X and I were just talking. I want to bring him in quickly about the incident which caught the attention of so many recently, about a 6-year-old who shot his first grade teacher. I'm still flabbergasted, Minister White, about that. I mean, you were making a comment before we started the broadcast tonight. And I just want to, I mean, you've been around this educational system for over 50 years, but a 6-year-old, I mean, where are we on that? I mean, what is that all about?
I mean, to unpack the dynamics of that would probably confuse Sigmund Freud. I mean, first of all, number one, how does he have the know and the wherewithal to load a gun, shoot a gun, pack a gun, hide a gun? That right there. So that's one thing you have to try to look at his mindset, just to focus on that. Now, the anger part was so volcanic, violent, that how long and what has been happening to that boy emotionally in the home. I figured up this chart in 1991. This chart was designed to show how many volatile situations that a child encounters every day. Is 48 different problems. Before that child leaves the house, a trigger there are 23 triggers that could make that child go off before a child leave the house. On the way to school, there's another 14. Then when they get to the school, they encounter 10. And anyone, that's a total of 48. Now let's say you got 32 children, 30 students in the classroom. That's 1,680 problems per hour ready to erupt every day.
You did this chart in 1991 in response to the, I know you've been extensively involved with the parent education. Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, when we, HISD under Joan Raymond had 27 people that were hired as interventionists. We went to over maybe 300 hours of training. And we were a cross between a counselor and a police officer. And our mission was, as an interventionist, to work on children that had drugs, weapons, or in a gang.
Could that be considered today, the way they define it, what is it, a resource officer, people, or y'all, because y'all were not armed, right?
No. No. And see, that was the compromise for having police presence. See, in some schools back then, 88, you had a police officer and a HISD officer. So to me, over time, the police presence and the police culture, I'll give you this example. The pipeline to prison bill that went through the Texas legislature was called Senate Bill 1, and it was called the Law and Order chapter. It's chapter 37 on the books now, but it was created in 1995. That was the prison. It got a thing called persistent misbehavior, where a teacher writes you up. When they put that jacket on you, it was putting you ever closer to the alternative school or the county alternative school. Those were the options. They created the environment of criminality. I don't know what that is, y'all. Yeah, they created a police mentality and a police culture infiltrated the educational system. I don't know what that is, Gilmore.
Like your system might need to be rebooted or something. It might need to be rebooted. But Rev Matthews has joined us. Listen, let me ask you a question, Charles, on that point you just brought up. The criminality, you know, are we talking about going back to the police being in the schools similar to that time period? Or were they saying too many police was too much at that time? And they took
the school system embraced the police. My philosophy at the time was that's not the right method to inject into the system. See, there are methods, proactive and mitigation methods that were not being implemented in the day-to-day activity
of the school, in the life of the student.
Right.
So now, could that have been, do you think you all at that time would have been able to identify this child behavior, not with the gun, but the behavior which supposedly was reported.
Okay, let me explain how that works. When we were hired for the high schools. Some of us did double duty, so many days at the high school and so many days at the middle school. We didn't deal with the elementary children
At all.
at all. So there's a discipline management plan that's supposed to address it all the way through, but it wasn't being applied at the school level, campus level. Because to me, it was all, in other words, there normally is an assistant principal that's supposed to be designated for discipline.
Well, I know you saw the recent data that said the increase of fights in the high schools and middle schools in the Houston Gulf Coast area, and they being taped and put on social media, that the parents have asked for some type of investigation, because it doesn't seem like these incidents are even surfacing unless there's something which a gun is involved. When you talk about a 6-year-old, that's ridiculous. I mean,
well, there's such an imbalance, in my opinion. There's such an imbalance of the relationship between schools and parents that until schools understand that parents are partners in this process and they treat them as equal and they bring them in as part of the discipline management and the academic progress, it's going to always be this, because it's out of control now. And the only way you're going to control it is bring those parents in, but you got to bring them in at the right angle with the right medicine. Because if you bring them in with that police mentality, you're going to get more of the same. It's just going to grow and continue to grow. Like it's out of control with what you said about the video and the fights. Right. That's the sensationalism. The control mechanisms, the societal control mechanism that you're supposed to get along the educational track, it's insufficient.
Insufficient. Well, you brought up a point, and I certainly want to remind our audience that the numbers are up if you want to call in. I don't know if we have Reverend Matthews is still here, but he's trying to get in. But I want to shift gears. You mentioned something. This is our state legislative session in the state of Texas, and the obvious need of leadership comes up. I haven't heard a lot about schools. I know the governor made some statements about wiping out diversity of selection. That's the only statement I've seen recently. But there's been no mass proposals, I don't think, about the schools. I know some of the schools say with the surplus that we have, that there should be some funding for parent programs, mental health, or whatever the case is. And I know you've been involved in this state session for quite some time. The idea for us, what should we do? Should we make the representatives know that? Because obviously there's a disconnect between the legislative leadership coming from our communities and what they're actually going to do. I don't see any proposals, honestly. Have you seen something that would brighten your hopes of the engagement of the leadership?
No, I have not. I have not seen it, have not heard of it, and in 50 years, I have not experienced it.
Hmm. Hmm. 50 years we have not experienced it. Reverend Matthews, I know you are traveling, but he said he hadn't experienced it in 50 years. Have you heard anything that would give you some hope about the engagement of the leadership in the state of Texas? I know you were deeply involved a couple of years ago with some other issues of leadership. Have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything.
No, sir. Hopefully you all can hear me. Thank you
Yes,
for,
we can.
again, Dr. Gilmore and my good brothers, Charles X, and all of you who are here. No, I haven't heard or seen anything. And it's interesting you should mention that because just the other day, or what should I say, when they began the legislative session, nor did I see any representation from any leadership in the community asking what would they like to see them propose. I didn't see anyone. I think they put a little bit on the news, but I didn't hear anything mentioned about mental health services, or did I hear anything about education? What I have heard is that the state is now supposedly taking over HISD and eliminating the board, the existing board that's there. And I haven't even heard any representation or voices from leadership, from board members or anyone, us, or to me, or any groups that I'm affiliated with, Youth Against Crime, or anybody, to talk about if we think that's the best approach or not. So, with all of that being said, it's obvious to me that the powers that be or leadership continue to perpetuate the disposition of ignoring that we exist unless it's voting time. And if I've seen it once, I've seen it twice, where it's almost as though it's an ownership or attitude of, I don't have to report to you. We do what we want to do. And I think what they forget is the importance that they're there to represent the community and the people who vote them in those positions. And as long as they continue to perpetuate that kind of, or represent that type of behavior, we're going to keep getting the same results that we've been getting. I think Charles X made a good point that, these agencies and institutions don't have an attitude of inclusiveness. They have more an attitude of exclusiveness. And our children are suffering, man. The other thing is that I've been recognizing with the schools that the president have assigned me to, Cullen and Yates, is that there seem to be a large number of students who are in truancy, or they in juvenile or been in juvenile criminal justice system, And so I haven't heard of anything that's addressing those youth who have needs, assessments, or I know that the superintendent was supposed to be implementing some type of wraparound services, social services to meet the needs of their students. But even from him, we haven't gotten a report or update if that's being successful. So, the mindset of leadership is we do what we want to do. and I think the response is, for us, is that we have to push the envelope or the needle and come together as a collective body and organizations to address them and let them know that's not acceptable.
Well, I've said for years that HISD is really 3 school districts. I hope people who are listening who might have understanding of the educational system recognize that we have 3 distinct districts within one, and that that catering is based upon that, because the point you just made about the closing of the school district was supposed to have been shut down, I thought, 3 or 4 years ago, when the change had been made with the board and also the leadership. And so it's still sitting there. And the state of Texas, again, the commissioner has not addressed or said anything to the community at large. Or if he has, he hasn't said it to our community, because there's still this rampant fear about African-American schools being closed or not getting the adequate services. Minister White, I know you have been, Lord knows you've been engaged with that system for many years. How do you see it today? We in 2023.
Let me put a little context to that, what you said. The Houston Independent School District took over the North Forest Independent School District as a mandate from Texas Education Agency. At the time, 5 years before the takeover, the Houston Independent School District was under a conservator or manager the same time that there were managers under North Forest was under the leadership of the Texas Education, what they call them, conservators. So both school districts were under conservatorship. And so how low performing. So how is HISD gonna monitor North Forest and it's low performing and under conservatorship? And why would you close North Forest when the people that were in the leadership at North Forest were TEA's people? So if it was low performing with TEA's people, why you condemn and penalize everybody in North Forest for bad leadership from the TEA leadership? That's one point. But you have to understand, this whole process comes back to land control and ownership. They want the property right inside the loop and 5 miles around the loop, outside the loop. And that's what this is about. This has been going on for years. For at least 15 years, they've been ever since Fourth Ward switched, Freemanstown switched. Ever since that, we watched the demise of Freemanstown, Fourth Ward, and guess what? We the people said nothing. We the people did nothing. And we were not informed by the elected leadership. So we are reaping what we sowed. We are reaping what we sowed by not holding them accountable.
Let me you alluded to that, but well, Rev Matthews alluded to it. But this is an election year as well. And so now I know we are celebrating the events. Seems like we're used to some big event celebration, rodeo come, all this, the Found For, everybody, people are making money. People are making money. I'm not gonna say we making it, but the city making money, whatnot. But the new leadership is about to come to the forefront in the city of Houston. And that new leadership is going to lead to, what will it lead to? The mayor's race?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
We don't have any jobs now, and in 5 years, we're not gonna have more. We'll have less jobs. The real estate is shrinking. The Black community's footprint is shrinking, transforming, and changing. We are being priced and taxed out of the market. We'll be on.
Is that a new concept of culture within the Black community that we have to accept, or is it a planned thought process which is evolving to whereas there's a new Negro, I'm gonna say it like that, there's a new Negro that has to be addressed and put in some thought process for the sake of where we are going. I mean, where are we going with that? Because if that is the case, then this is a new group. If that is the case, what happened in Memphis with the 5 Black officers killing that Black guy was no more brutal than what happened to Rodney King.
Yeah. So let me say it like this. People in charge have 20, 30, and 50-year plans for infrastructure, development, growth, employment. They make plans. Now, normally, if there's a committee of 40, you might have 6 Blacks in that committee, on that committee. They are privileged just to be on the committee. You don't see those Blacks that are in those kinds of committees coming back holding meetings to inform the community. You don't have an elected official that has an agenda and ask his staff to make sure these meetings and information is pushed out once a month and we reach out to all our constituents through the mail. You don't have that. So there is no information infrastructure that would inform and arm the citizens on how to weaponize public policy, which public policy is what moves money and it hides money. And what it does is moves money to be hidden from Black people and the growth in the neighborhood. I just left a meeting in Port Arthur. We had a meeting in Port Arthur this morning at 10 o'clock with Texas A&M, one of the professors that I'm consulting. And in this meeting, the purpose of the meeting had to do with flood mitigation. And this professor has an artificial intelligence tool that's going to help municipality measure water flow and water saturation and levels. It's an AI. They have found through his research and other people's research that the communities that are in most need of this technology are Black, brown, and Asian. But most cities, most municipalities do not address vulnerable populated neighborhoods, but they're going to be the ones that are most affected by the catastrophe or the disaster because they're already in crisis before the fact. So you know they're going to be in catastrophic level after the fact.
You're making me have a flashback to this Fifth Ward cancer admission after how many years?
At least 35. Boy, now more than that, 45.
Who is, that's why I'm going to this idea of the leadership and new leadership. Who's supposed to take the responsibility or the fall?
Politicians are the blame for not being on their posts and having all these excuses and slogans. You know, I've heard politician after politician say a statement like this. They come back to with a pseudo report on what they did in the legislative session, and say, I submitted 15 bills, and these bills passed through the House. But you know, when it got to the Senate, them Republicans, they killed it. Negro, you knew that before you submitted it. What's your plan B?
Can I jump in right here, brothers? Charles, you mentioned something, Gilmore. I've been following Robert Smith. I think he's $8 billion in asset, who paid off the student loans at Morehouse. In my conversation this morning, what I discovered, the largest debt that exists in America are African-American students as a result of student loans. And we already know about how they issued credit cards their first year in college and how they don't understand money management and all of that. But his advocacy focus has been about the fourth revolutionary industry in the nation. And he may have even said the world, which is technology. And the absence of AI from the middle schools, high school, and even many HBCUs. Now, what has happened, Amazon and HCC has entered into an agreement and a relationship to teach it, because Amazon have that as a part of their orientation, or if you're in that space, they train you to understand how the AI works and the configurations of it and the programs of it and everything. And so what they did was they decided to go ahead and partner with ACC, which I think is great, because that's the only place that I know of that is being offered. And the reason being, goes back to your point, Charles, is that if our social fiber and business structural models are moving in that direction of technology, automation, and systems. And if you don't have the training to understand how to configure artificial intelligence, the likelihood of you working in that workspace is 0 to none, right? And so that's something that's really, really major. And to me, it makes sense to introduce, and I think even those who may even be in criminal justice situations or lacking behind, they may find this space very, very intriguing and interesting enough that may transform their life, because they're on these applications every day anyway. It's almost as if when a baby is born, and as soon as he gets smacked on the behind, you know, he's ready to play a game. He can configure the television and the video and everything. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the era that we live in, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so he's really been pushing that, man, and that's been his voice. And he's been attacked for even paying off those student loans. He talked about how he had to be very strategic in even doing that, or creating that structure so that it would be acceptable, right? And so, that's a real strong point, and I think that's a real focus. And the other thing, Charles, I not only say it's the leadership, Black leadership, or politicians, but our faith-based institutions need to do a better job, because they go there. Those politicians and leaders go there to get the vote of the people in the pews. And I believe that we can do, as faith leaders, can do a collective coalition of some sort, a better job in approaching them and providing with them what our concerns are, understanding what our needs are. Because if you're a leader and think you can exclude the community, then you're detaching yourself from the heartbeat of the community. And you're not going to know what to propose. You're not going to know how the effects that's going to be and all of that. So, I think we're on a good path with that conversation, man.
Well,
Let me
say,
go on, Charles.
I'm going to give you another spin on that, Brother Matthews.
Come on, Doc.
Doctor. If a person is in office for 3 years and don't have a clue as to what the people need, they need to walk away, or we need to run them out of town. So they know what we need. That's why we don't have what we need. That's why they call Black communities with unmet needs. That's a political designation through public policy. So it's not like there's a unknown. It's a known, but it's an acquiescing and acceptance of the short-term goal, which is my pocket, versus the people's welfare and good and goodwill. That's X'd out.
Right.
So this is not new territory. And Gilmore, you said something about new leadership. The new leadership is gonna have a head with nobody. Because they don't understand the roots of which we come from. And they are so susceptible to the spin doctors and the glitter and the bling bling. Bling bling is not gone. Bling bling has grown. You understand? So how can a new leader lead with no arms and no legs and just a head? It ain't no AI in that head.
You both you and Matthews have made me think back. I'm gonna have to go pull the book out. Since this is Carter, since this is Black History Month. The miseducation of the Negro.
Yeah.
The actual book, which, in a sense, led to the evolution of the awareness that we're supposed to have a Black History Month. And I was thinking about it when Matthew was talking about AI and the missing components, and how you were talking about it in terms of 50 years and the plan you brought up from 1991, and then you dealing with people who the governor's statement, I don't even know where the governor gets his advice from. His statement was that the schools and other institutions should not consider diversity or ethnicity at all for anything. It's like go get the Confederate flag and fly it with the Texas flag, and let's see who we can get to join with us. I mean, I honestly believe, in light of what goes on in the leadership, that there are people who would prefer us to be stuck in the miseducation part, knowing full well, what you were saying, Matthews, as well as you, Charles, in terms of what works.
Mhm.
But somebody got to be a slave. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Mhm.
Somebody got to be a slave. Somebody has to be a consumer. Somebody got to be there. They just ain't figured out. I'm saying they, meaning some leaders ain't figured out how to deal with the new immigration, how to deal with the new people want to come. Because everybody that came from somewhere, whether you was on the boat, however you got here, you came from somewhere to America. You've been here 3.5 weeks. Now you just feel like, hey, you know, I'm here, you know, I got my thing going on and nobody else gonna do anything and just feed this ignorance. I mean, it's like we cannot go into 2023 thinking that the ignorance from 50 or 60 years ago, which we all know existed in America, is going to be legit.
Right.
I mean, I was listening to President Biden's speech the other day. I'm an independent. I've been an independent. But I enjoyed some of the points he was bringing out in the speech, you know, about unity, trying to get some jobs, trying to get people to. And I'm looking at people sitting up there don't want to clap about things that's good for America. So do we continue to go down this road of separatism and independence in a thought process? Don't say nothing in public, but in the thought process, you are separate and independent. If that makes sense, I mean, you know, I mean,
Gilmore,
it
makes all good sense. But we are suffering from an alternate reality. See, when we were enslaved, we were transformed from human to something else. And it's alternate reality. Our reality bridges were disconnected. We didn't have a bridge to our language, our culture, our religion, our science, none of that. It was all extracted out of us. So we are a hybrid people from that standpoint. We are separate and unequal still. The Kerner Commission report by Lyndon Johnson in 68 and 40 years later said the same thing. There are two Americas, one black, one white, and unequal. As it relates to education and being in an alternate reality. When HISD was downtown Houston on Rush Street, at the intersection of Rush and San Jacinto, I believe, we used to have to go during the summer and pick up the books for the next school year. My daddy was a principal. Now, I'm 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old doing this ritual. One year, it dawned on me, why are we taking the raggedy books? You get me? Not the new books, the raggedy books. Separate, unequal.
Going to the point that Woodson talked about, and the faith community is guilty. We're guilty. Those of us in the faith community are guilty because we go along with the prostitution in some ways of our people. and we don't do sufficient amount. I talked to one of the faith leaders today. He said once upon a time preachers didn't get a salary. They got some chickens and different types of things that support them. And he said, what would happen if you didn't offer no salary? I said, it'd be a lot of despondent church followers, because that's the expectation now. That's the expectation. It's a false sense. So it goes back to what you said, Matthew. We're off track on some things that would provide the leadership. So why should I say something if I'm elected? Why should I say something to the supposed clergy leaders if they don't know their full role,
right,
as a faith leader? Or I'm a political leader, but why should I say something? And if you got the raggedy book, and all you concerned about is am I going to be able to get a food basket this week? Because eggs are $4. What is my objective goal for my child? I mean,
and I think one of the reasons, Reverend Dr. Gilmore, is going to your point of why should I say something, or I don't have to say something or say anything, is because they already understand the dysfunction that it exists in our community as it is. That's why you notice that support has been given for marching, protesting, because they understand. Some people understand that it's only going to be temporary, and that doesn't really create change. And even those who lead these type of efforts don't really address how to create change, how to make change, or even have a continuation of follow-up conversations with structure to bring that kind of unity to make impact. And, I think that's pretty much the sentiment, let them get it off. They're going to do it 1 day, 2 days, and God forbid if a cold come through, ain't nobody showing up. So, we'll go right back to normal.
I was reading the history of Martin Luther King coming to Houston, and they didn't want him to come. They didn't want him to come. One of the people who was supportive was Bill Lawson, of course, and F.N. Williams, and a few others. But the majority of Blacks had the private meetings to say, we don't want this aggravation here, and how difficult it was for him to come. And when they did schedule him here, somebody threw some kind of smoke bomb or a stink bomb or something in the Sam Houston Coliseum to stop the meeting. They eventually brought it back, but the difficulty of our people following the leadership. I mean, and we've all participated in these every 10-year rallies. Tavis Smiley had one to get to play back with the power, all this. But that's why I said we just 50 or 60 years.
Man, I was looking at the Grammys the other night, and I recognized how much resources was in that room in terms of revenue and capital. And when I think about the collaborations that artists have among themselves, and rappers, and the Takeoff and the Beef and all this other stuff that goes on, it behooves me that the rapper community or the R&B community or the jazz community, whatever genre they want to be in, actors, engineers, lawyers, I can go on and on. We generate $1.2 trillion in this economy a year.
Today, 2023.
Yeah. And
in 2025, they say it's going to be 1.8 trillion.
That's correct. And so with that kind of commerce, and it's no reason for us to not be in a better position to move the needle in the envelope more effectively.
So we already in. Don't be talking about reclaiming a Black Wall Street. We got a Black Wall Street right now, and that's the point. That's the point. That's the real point of the power that comes with the responsibility. Charles, you had mentioned that the idea that you got the power, but I guess ain't nothing wrong with having a $10,000 chain or $100,000 watch. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to. If I could just get the right time, I'm in good shape. But the power and the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because we all gonna die one day. I mean, I think some people need to be reminded, as tragic as that situation was, where the young man came to Houston and was involved in a frivolous situation and he died. I think some people need to be reminded, we're gonna all die one day. I don't care how much money you got or where you at in the spectrum of power. You're gonna die one day.
Absolutely.
Whether it's I remember when the lawyer, big time lawyer here in Houston was, every time you move around, it's his name. He was this, that, and the other, and hit that Allen Parkway on a rainy day and hit that tree and die.
Right.
We all are destined to die one day. The accountability is what we're talking about. I think that's one of the things that over the years I've appreciated listening to people like Minister Farrakhan and Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and others. They were talking about accountability.
Right.
And in some cases, if you didn't have bodyguards, your life would be taken away because you confronted the powers that be, and they didn't want you to know that they had ulterior motive to go back to the multi-million-dollar whatever and do whatever to the people. And at the same time, the ignorance of it, the miseducation of the Negro, the ignorance of it floats down to the people. I looked at those people in that not to cut your point off, Charles, that earthquake.
Right.
People went to sleep. They went to sleep at night.
Gilmore.
Huh?
This week, a statement was made in a political arena this week where a citizen made a comment to a legislator and said, I'm going to hold you accountable. Within an hour, there was a statement made by an elected official that inferred that it was a terroristic threat. So if elected officials are going to go to the extreme, when somebody says we want to hold you accountable and they flip the script to say that's a terroristic threat, that's how far off we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, I'm gonna have to revisit my Constitution again about some of the you know, we the people parts, because it doesn't imply just because you're a black person with a badge, you can go beat somebody worse than a white person with a badge. You know what I mean? I mean, that responsibility and accountability should be a part of your fiber. It ain't there. That's what I'm saying. That goes back to the point you made, Matthew. I don't know if we preaching enough or aggrandizing. I mean, there's no conviction at certain levels with people. There's just no conviction.
Well, if you look at the time we live in, let's go back to 1865 after slavery, when they sent out the paddy rollers to bring the slaves back to the plantation in the paddy wagon. These black officers were undercover in an unmarked car, riding, looking for somebody to beat up. That was their job.
I don't want to go there. I'm just saying that regardless, there ought to be accountability, and that's the fiber. We're finna wrap it up. What's your thought? Where do we go? I mean, that's the whole thing. Where do we go from here?
In my opinion, I'm still in the space of economic development, talking it up with people who are like-minded, working with people, collaborating, joint venturing with people to create enough synergy that would interest and spark an education for those who may feel like it's beyond their reach to have ownership, or beyond their reach to understand the fix and flip game, or to buy and acquire properties with no credit, no money. Creative financing is very much alive and well. And I just think, again, that the faith leadership is going to have to speak to those issues from the pulpit, empower their people. I mean, I love hooping. I love 3 points and 3 Ps in the intro, but we have to really now peel back the layers and get to the nitty-gritty of the matter that's affecting our people, and bring back the value that human life is more valuable than an animal.
That's good enough.
Well, I agree with what he said.
That's good enough. I want to say thank you very much to my guests. Certainly, we have a lot to offer this year. I hope that those of you who are looking and listening support Houston Media Source, Public Affairs, Public Access. I've been your host, Rob McKinney Gilmore Sr. It's a blessing just to be here. See you next time.
Stay on top. Good to see you, preacher.